We are back, Talkin Hoops from Nedick at the Old Garden on 48th Street. I'm Ralph Tyko. My co-host is Alan Blumkin, and my new co-host, Hal Bock. Both of you guys are here. How are you guys?
Good to be with you, Ralph.
Yeah, good to have you. You were a guest last night on Marty Rose and I's show on the New York Mets, and he and I were just delighted with your appearance and the fact that you're going to be a regular on this show, and you were back in those days, in those Nedick's days.
Boy, was I ever.
Thrilled to have you.
What a great building that was. Madison Square Garden on 8th Avenue and 48th Street. What a magnificent place.
No, I spent a lot of my misspent youth there.
Right. I feel like I'm in a Damon Runyon novel right now. How much money turned over in that lobby?
Oh, my God.
On point spreads, the last 5 minutes of a game, the gamblers, the wise guys, right? they all met.
Quite a bit of business was transacted in that lobby, I'll tell you.
When I first started going to double headers,
I'm innocent in all of this.
when I first started going to the double headers, and it seemed like either the Pistons or the Bullets were in every double header, and I started wondering why people were cheering them. And then somebody pointed it out to me, and then I understood fully.
Yeah, that was a transitional time. That was a transitional time in college basketball. I remember being in the Garden one night. I went to New York University, and they would play part of the doubleheaders. Almost every week they would have a doubleheader. And the Violets, the NYU Violets, were playing a team from Seattle, University of Seattle. That's Seattle. That's 3,000 miles away. They're going to be exhausted. Well, all right, we'll play them. And Seattle comes in, and they had a guy wearing number 22 who did things on the basketball court that I never saw before. And I thought, my God, is this the future? And it was. The guy's name was Elgin Baylor. And
right,
for me,
he wore like a T-shirt jersey, which
he sure did.
Yeah. One of the first T-shirt jerseys I ever saw in basketball. And he was a horse. Oh, my God, he was good.
He did things I'd never seen before. I mean, he was terrific. What a terrific player.
Yeah.
Any
memories of him in particular, Alan?
Yeah, well, he at one time set the record for 71 points in a game by a player, and he'd broken a record that was set in the 40s by a Philadelphia Warrior named Joe Fulks. Baylor got 71, and of course it was against the Knicks.
Well,
he was just impossible. Yeah.
Of course. There was very little defense played by the Knicks in those days before they...
There's little defense played by the Knicks today. It's the same thing.
I know, yeah.
Yeah. What they say, the home run hitters get paid money and the big scorers get paid money. You drive Cadillacs, this, that, and the other thing. I want to, before we forget, your book, Hal, you have a new book out on the Chicago Cubs. You just won an award. Tell us about the book. Tell us about the award. I'll digress here because I want to make sure that we get that.
The book is called The Last Dynasty, The Last Chicago Cubs Dynasty, and it deals with a time when the team that went 108 years without winning a World Series. That team once was the best team in baseball. The first decade of the 20th century, they were the best team. They won 4 National League pennants and 2 World Series. Now, of course, they didn't win anything after that until most recently, 2016. And I covered 30 World Series for the Associated Press. And I remember thinking to myself, gee, every team is in the World Series. the Cubs have never been in the World Series that I saw. And I wondered about that. I thought, well, how can this be? How can a team be that bad for so long? And I thought to myself, there must have been a time when they weren't that bad. And so I started doing research, and I discovered the Tinkety, Evers to Chance, Mordecai Three-Finger Brown Cubs of the first decade of the 20th century. And they were the best team in baseball. They won 116 games one year. No team has ever won more than 116 games in a season. And they just dominated baseball. So that's when I went about writing the book. I had a great time researching and writing the book. And I was gratified to see it listed as the fourth best baseball book of 2016 by Sports Collectors Digest. And they said that it was the best history of baseball written in 2016. So that was very gratifying.
That is, well, it should be. That's a well-deserved honor.
Nice Sam Schlossberg.
Yeah. What can you? Yeah. Who's been a guest? Mr. Schlossberg's been a guest. He did a book on the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know him. I know him from the Sabre meetings. I know him fairly well.
Another really nice, well-thought-out guy. Much like you gentlemen. Let me go to Wilt a little bit. That's what we're going to talk about. Overbrook High School, Philadelphia, Territorial draft choice because of
high school.
At a high school.
Yeah.
Tell us, Alan Blumkin, if you would, something about that rule, how that got started.
Basically, it was a rule so the NBA teams could get local players to play for their local college players to play for their the hometown team. Like Oscar Robertson in Cincinnati, there were a number of them. It went on for about a dozen years. And when Wilt Chamberlain came out of high school, the first time I ever heard of Wilt Chamberlain was when he was in high school. And Eddie Gottlieb, who owned the Philadelphia Warriors at the time, was in a panic that Chamberlain would go to a college somewhere outside of the territorial draft area. So he got the NBA, and I think Boris Pavlov was still commissioner at that point, to approve them drafting Chamberlain as a territorial out of high school. So they permitted that, and they took Chamberlain. Chamberlain, of course, wasn't eligible to play in the league by the rules at that time until his senior class had graduated. He went to Kansas, and so they didn't have to worry about him not staying, in Philadelphia to play college ball.
And then to get his until he graduated, he left Kansas.
He left Kansas
one
after
more
year. In those days,
he was a Globie. He was a Harlem Globetrotter.
In those days, freshmen were not allowed to play varsity basketball. So he played 2 years at Kansas. He lost an NCAA championship to North Carolina in a game. Of course, in those days there were no clocks, and North Carolina beat them 54-53 in a couple of overtimes. They were collapsing around him all game, and this was the type of defense they used in college. So after his junior year, he left college, and because he couldn't come into the NBA for another year, he went and played with the Harlem Globetrotters. In fact, he was playing backcourt for them, just as a sideshow.
Okay, two things. Before I have to ask the one question about the Cubs book, I just want to ask Alan whether or not you think there were some owners outside of Gottlieb that used that territorial draft well, and were there some owners that used it poorly?
Now, hold on 1 second. I'm getting a call. I'll be right back.
Okay. Then let me go back to you, Mr. Hal Bock. I want to know, would Tinkers and Evans and Chance been Hall of Famers individually?
Yeah, back.
Evers Tinkers, Evers, and Chance be Hall of Famers individually were it not for that little ditty that was written. And can you tell me where that ditty came from?
Franklin P. Adams was a columnist here in New York, and he was on his way to a ball game in 1908, I guess, and he got a call before he left the office from his composing room that he was 8 lines short in his copy. And he said, okay, I'll fix it when I get to the ballpark. And on the train, the subway, riding up to the Polo Grounds, he composed this little poem. And it really was kind of a silly little poem about double plays. And it caught on. Tinker to Evers to Chance. Now, Chance was a great first baseman. He was also the manager of the Cubs. He probably would have gotten into the Hall of Fame without Tinker and Evers. But as a combination, they were unbeatable, and they didn't turn that many double plays. They turned like 50-odd double plays over a 3-year period. But that
compared to the other double play combinations of their time, were they good? Were they exceptional hitters? Were they exceptional fielders? Or they just had the
Tinker and Evers Chance?
Yeah.
Chance was a great hitter. Tinker and Evers were kind of ordinary hitters, but they were good fielders. And they, as I said, that little poem by Franklin P. Adams is responsible. A lot of people believe that's responsible for getting them in the Hall of Fame as a trio. And it's hard to argue with the success of the club during those years, and they were certainly a cornerstone of that success. So sure they would have been in the Hall of Fame, but certainly Chance would have gotten in on his own, and I think the other two probably would have made it eventually anyway.
Okay, that's fair analysis, and that answers kind of a lifelong curiosity with me.
Okay, Ralph?
Yes, sir.
I may add one thing to that. Johnny Evers was his generation's Billy Martin. He was a 250, 260 hitter. And during the regular season, he went into the World Series. He would turn it up about 10 notches.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
You look at his World Series numbers. Johnny Evers, because he played those 4 with the Cubs, and he was with the 1914 Braves. So he played in 5 World Series, and his numbers were pretty good.
Well, Billy Martin was just incredible in the World Series. And from what I understand, I don't remember where I heard it. I might have heard it from you, Alan Blumkin, that Billy Martin and Jackie Robinson shared the same agent or attorney. I don't think they called them agents at those times, but representative. And they were pretty close off the field, but they both had this incredible desire to win the big games, and Billy Martin always came up over Jackie Robinson in World Series.
Okay, now getting back to your question, when I was briefly interrupted there. The only two, outside Chamberlain, the only two real territorial locks was when the Celtics took Tommy Heinsohn. And they got Bill Russell the same year as Tommy Heinsohn came in. And when the Cincinnati Royals got Oscar Robertson.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah.
Again, last week you told the story of Dolph Shays. Dolph Shays could have been
that was 2 leagues. There were 2 leagues.
Oh, okay.
And there was a National Basketball League and the Basketball Association of America. Syracuse was in the NBL. Knicks were in the BAA. The Knicks offered Chase $5,000 a year. Syracuse offered them $7,000 a year.
And for $2,000, they
$2,000. As I said, that was the first in a long line of disastrous Knick decisions. And
$2,000 in those days was a lot of money, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
I know. Yeah, and when the Knicks had their territorial pick, I think they took Walter Dukes.
From Seton Hall.
Dukes must have been from... Where did he go to college in New York?
He went to Seton Hall.
Oh, Seton Hall. That's right. That's right. Now, did Cal Ramsey, Hal Bock go to NYU when you attended there? Okay.
Sure did. He was there. He was a sophomore when I got there as a freshman, and he was on the team that went to the Final Four. Satch Sanders was the center on that team. He was 6'6". Today he would be a point guard, but Satch had a great pro career with the Boston Celtics and won many championships with the Celtics. He was a very important defensive player for them. And,
absolutely.
Cal was a wonderful player. He was 6'4", and he just was a little too short to make it in the NBA. Yeah,
he was a tweener.
He was a tweener. And he was a great college player, though. He was a terrific player for NYU.
Was Rossini the coach at that time?
He sure was, Lou Rossini. He succeeded Howard Kahn.
Yeah, and
Howard Kahn, of course, is a Hall of Fame coach. And when I got to NYU, the Violets were not very good, and the coach was Howard Kahn, and his assistant was a guy named Ray Lump, who played for the Knicks also. And
I remember that. Yeah,
the student editor that I was on the college newspaper, we decided we were going to go after Howard Kahn, who only was a Hall of Fame coach, and we wrote a headline, "Can, and Dump Lump." And they came after us for that, I'll tell you.
Lump had 2 P's in his name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
When I was at Pitt, Pitt made the NCAA in 1963, and they played NYU, and NYU had Happy Hairston and Barry Kramer back then.
Right. That's
and
right.
NYU beat Pitt by 10 in that game.
Right. And of all the people, the Knicks end up with Kramer, and I guess it was
Happy Hairston had a very good career with Detroit and the Lakers. He had a very, very good pro career.
Another, if they're going to scout in their own backyard and mess it up, that's another New York Knicks faux pas. Another guy that they drafted, who you could almost see it was Art Heyman. He just couldn't get the ball off, and Jack the Shot Foley was another one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just terrible drafts.
For a long time. They passed up Nate Thurman for Artie Heyman. I had to get Artie Heyman because Duke had come into Pittsburgh to play Pitt, and I saw them. I saw him, and I said to friends of mine after that game, this guy's not going to be a good pro. And of course, the Knicks drafted him number 1.
Right, and I can't tell you, I've lived in the Bay Area most of my adult life. How great Nate the Great was. He just passed away in the last few months.
Passed away,
Rest in peace, big guy. He was so solid. Basically, was the reason the Warriors gave away Wilt. They figured move Nate over, an awful lot less trouble.
Yeah, well, it was very disruptive to Chamberlain when they moved the Warriors. Gottlieb sold the Warriors to. They moved them to San Francisco, and Philadelphia was out without an NBA team for 1 year before the Syracuse Gnats came down there and became the 76ers. And they made the finals once with Chamberlain. Boston, I think, knocked them out in 5 games. And then Chamberlain was traded back to Philadelphia because he and Nate. It was sort of a situation like when the Knicks had Reed and Bellamy.
Right.
So they sent Wilt back to the Sixers. And
now, let me interrupt 1 second to ask both of you guys if you didn't think that Sixer team with Lucas Jackson and Costello and Greer and those guys were as good as any NBA team we ever saw in our lives.
Yeah, well,
ever saw. That's tough. I mean, the Boston Celtics teams were pretty good, pretty darn good.
Right. But that 1 year with Wilt playing defense.
Yeah, and Chet Walker and Billy Cunningham at the forwards.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And A bench, which was terrific. They were just that. Lucius Jackson, like I say, was a young stud power forward. I stand in awe of that. Actually,
well, they won in '67, and then '68 they took a 3-1 lead into the conference final against the Celtics, and the Celtics beat them in 3 games to win the and they went up to win the championship that year. And after that, that's when Chamberlain, one of the owners who Chamberlain was closest to, named Mike Richmond, died, and Chamberlain claimed that Richmond had promised Chamberlain a cut in the team, like 5% ownership, and the other owner, Kozlov, denied it, and Chamberlain forced his trade to the Lakers after that season. And then the Sixers, Cunningham left to go to the ABA. Chet Walker was traded to the Bulls for Jim Washington, who was a local and wasn't half the player that Chet Walker was. And the team, 5 years later, wound up going 9-73.
A side of Chamberlain that is often overlooked, and I know about it firsthand because I was dispatched to Kennedy Airport to do an interview with him. He coached the San Diego Conquistadors for one season, and they flew into New York for, the American Basketball Association to play the Nets, and they had a press conference at Kennedy Airport with Wilt talking about coaching, and he was not exactly inspired to coach. He kind of, he did it for a year, and that was the end of it. But it was not something that really. He was a better center than he was a coach. Let's put it that way.
Oh, so what a terrific athlete! He was a track star in college.
Oh yeah.
Let's go back to Overbrook High School in Philadelphia. Pay them some homage. That's where he got started. Wayne Hightower came out of there. Wally Jones.
I think Walt Hazard came out of there also.
Right, you're absolutely right. And that team also produced Craig Pearson, my Kittatinny Camp mate, who went on to be a star guard at Albright and had the skills to play pro ball, but was into being a doctor. So he became a doctor, and he went to a small, tiny school, scored 34 points a night, and later became instrumental in the Major League Players Association. He was team doctor for the A's and the Cubs, and quite a guy. Rest in peace, Craig. I miss you tremendously. There you go. I had to interrupt to get that in. This is podcast radio, Hal. You'll see that we just say what we want when we want, and this.
Wilt had an incredible year in '61-62. That was the year of the 100-point game. He averaged 50.4 points a game for that entire season. He played, averaged 48 and a half minutes a game because he never fouled out his entire career. And that 48 and a half encompassed several overtime games.
His backup center with the Warriors was a guy named Joe Ludwig.
Rucklick. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd never play, and the rumor was, and it wasn't just a rumor, I knew this because more of my campmates were Philadelphia Warrior ball boys and equipment managers, 2 guys, Jeff Millman and Al Jacobs, or I think his name was Al Jacobs, and they would tell me the stories of Rucklick. He'd come off the court, everybody's taking a shower, Rucklick would put his civilian clothes on over his uniform and go back to the hotel. He'd be gone before everybody basically got out of the shower. He'd never play. And you're right, Wilt averaged more, because of overtime, he averaged more than 48 minutes a game. and never fouled out. I wonder why that was. Can you guys give me did the refs just not want to foul him out?
He was too strong.
Okay.
I think the refs recognized what a star he was, and they were going to give him wide berth. I believe that.
Right.
It's something like the Michael Jordan years. Jordan rarely fouled out, but players would say he did some funny stuff on the court. But the refs, I think, when you're a star, when you're an all-star, when you're a superstar, the refs will kind of give you a little more space than they would the ordinary player.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But never in his career fouling out. An incredible record. And Joe Rucklick, that was the name. You guys are smart, smart as a whip. I don't know who came up with that. Was that Alan Blumkin or was that Hal Bock?
No, that was Alan.
On this new effort on Comfortably Zoned Radio. It's called Talkin Hoops from Nedick's at the Old Garden on 48th Street. This has been one of those terrific episodes. I want you guys to both close it out by, first of all, I want to say, Hal, where is your book? How can we get it if we want to?
The Cubs book is available from Amazon.
How'd you get it?
And BarnesandNoble.com.
Got it through Amazon.
And also directly from the publisher, Roman and Littlefield.
I got it through Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon.
Okay, so it's out there. Just based on Hal's passion, I highly recommend it. And I had you on a show a couple of months ago. We talked about sometimes there's a baseball god. Not only did the Cubs win, but they won in the year that you wrote the book.
Remarkable, isn't it? I was not responsible.
No, I know. But you got some karma out there, and how bad is that?
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Welcome, Hal. This is our second episode, and we're delighted. If you guys have anything you want to say about Wilt or anything else before we close it out, start with Alan Blumkin.
Okay, well, Wilt changed his game a couple of years into his stay with the Lakers and basically stopped scoring, and he wound up, I think, leading the league in assists one year.
He did that, that's right.
Yeah, he supplemented his game, and with all the things and all publicity, because of the domination of the Celtics during most of his career, he only won 2 championships, one with the 66-67 Warriors, Sixers, and the other with the 71-72 Lakers.
We would be remiss, before we close the show, we would be remiss in not mentioning across the street from the Old Garden, the Garden Cafeteria with the best cheesecake in town.
And also, Hal, you remember that candy store on the 48th Street side with all the tap phones?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
I think every phone in the car has to go for tap.
Great memories.
Yeah. Well, let me give you my Wilt memory is when
half a dozen guys
Murray Rose, who Hal, you and Marty Rose talked about on the Met show last night, an esteemed sports writer with the AP, a boxing writer, and he'd get Marty, and Marty would take me to all kinds of games. Knicks, everything, roller derby. We had tickets to everything every week. And Marty and I are just starting high school, so for us to go out at night was parents kind of worried, stretching it. The Knicks played a triple overtime in the Garden. Willie Knowles or Johnny Green scored the winning bucket, whoever it was, and beat the Sixers with Wilt, or the Warriors with Wilt when Wilt was a rookie or his second year. And it was one of the highlights of Marty and I's fandom. And anything that you guys want again have in a memory of Wilt from anywhere you want to pull it out of? Alan?
Scoring 100 points in one game. Nobody has ever done that, and nobody else has ever done that, and I don't think anybody else ever will.
That game was played in Hershey, Pennsylvania, for 4,000 people.
Exactly. But
no TV.
What a remarkable accomplishment.
Guy Rogers,
absolutely,
had something like 28 assists in that game.
Yeah.
But the craziest moment is that they had played. It was like the mid-'60s. They had played the first game of a doubleheader, and I went down to the bottom level to get some concession or bathroom, whatever. I'm walking one way, and the opposite way, Wilt is coming. My head came up to his waist.
Yeah, I got an autograph from him once, and the same thing, right? Like, yeah. Wow. I could tell you, walking the bowels of the Garden, the day Carl Braun takes over as the Knick coach. Now, as a kid growing up, Carl Braun, Richie Guerin, I mean, these guys were such incredible idols. And I walk right by Carl Braun. I go, "Congratulations, Mr. Braun. Get away from me, kid."
Really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, that was basically that. That was a big brush off. But it was his first night as the Knick coach. He was going to be a player coach. I think he was, when he started, he was
a player coach. He was a player. He was very furious with the Knick organization because they wouldn't retire his number.
Braun was?
Yeah,
really?
Braun, yeah. He was infuriated with them until he passed away a couple of years ago.
They
retired Gal, and then they retired Dick McGuire, who played with him, in those early years.
Right. Yeah, Braun had that two-handed set shot, if I remember correctly.
Number 4. Yeah.
Yeah, number 4. I'll tell you who the best Knick was from those times. That was Richie Guerin.
Yeah,
highly underrated.
Yeah.
Highly underrated.
You know who my hero was? My hero was maybe a little bit earlier. Max Zaslavsky.
Oh, yeah.
Number 10. Max Zaslavsky.
We
talked about him last week a little bit.
Yeah,
he owns a bowling alley in Queens.
There's a story about that.
He had a memorabilia store.
There's a story about that. About him. Can I tell it quickly?
Yeah, please.
After the 1949-50 season, one of the teams that folded up was a team called the Chicago Stags. And they dispersed the players to various teams that were remaining, and there were 3 left that they couldn't agree on. So they put the 3 in like they did with Tom Seaver, when he went up on the Mets, and 3 pieces of paper into a bowl. The Knicks drew the first one, and they picked back Zaslavsky. The Warriors got the second one, and they picked the backcourt man from the University of Illinois, who became a pretty good pro by the name of Andy Phillip. And the Celtics were stuck with the third pick, who turned out to be Bob Cousy.
Not bad. not a bad third choice, huh?
Yeah, because Alan Blumkin didn't want him when they came out of Holy Cross, and then he wound up being stuck with Cousy, and then well, the rest is history.
Yep.
And can you imagine a backcourt with Cousy and Sharman and the Jones boys coming off the bench, and Ramsey could play backcourt too in those days.
Oh yeah, they didn't win anything until Russell came.
Oh, no question. Yeah. That was everything, and we talked about the McCauley and Hagan.
Yeah, they couldn't rebound. They could score a lot, but they couldn't rebound before Russell came in.
Yeah, and how special Russell was, and what a special matchup without Russell being there. It's like the Giants and Dodgers. It wouldn't be the same for either of those players if they didn't have each other.
Yeah, when Russell retired, Russell never played against Kareem. When Kareem came into the league, he was with the Milwaukee Bucks for 5 5 or 6 years before he went to the Lakers. And when he played with the Bucks and Chamberlain played with the Lakers, they had a pretty good rivalry going on.
Yes, and that first year was Kareem's a rookie, and he's got Oscar, an aged veteran, but still Oscar.
That was the second year. Yeah.
Oh, was that the second year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool to watch that. How about next week we'll do an Oscar show, guys?
Winning streak in 1970.
How about next week we do an Oscar show?
Fine.
Suits me.
You like that?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
You both in, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Oscar and Jerry West. They were
that's yes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what we can do. Let's do a 1960s Olympic show.
Okay.
But they were more than that. They were more than that.
But it'd be more than one episode, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Oscar and Jerry West were much more than just that Olympics.
Oh, of course. But
yeah.
we could, as an offshoot, we could talk about some of their teammates on the Olympics. We'll make it run. We got the Nedick spirit, and
there you go.
But I guess I wanted to tell you after the triple overtime, I had to use those telephones to call home my mother to tell her that we didn't die in the subway. Of the smell.
Bill Hall on for tomorrow night?
Pardon me?
Bill Hall, is he on for tomorrow night?
It's your guy. It's your show. You tell me.
Okay, I'll have to email him.
Okay,
right.
I can't be included in that one tomorrow night, Alan.
Okay.
But keep up the good work. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Alan is, in case you don't know it, Hal Bock. He's my Tommy Heinrich. Old, reliable.
There you go.
Say old, not old, because we're all over 70, and we're all day to day. So that we're here with our Seichel, and we still got it, guys. They're looking for a cure. We will be back next week. I thank my listening audience, and I thank you guys for participating. Keep on keeping on, everybody. See you next week.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.